English is a global language that seconds as a punching bag on the internet. I hear and read complaints about the English language in videos, comment sections, forums, and even from people I know in reality. So why is English shit on so much? And is it really that bad? That's what I'm hoping to answer in this video. Many people dislike English because they were forced to learn it in school with no interest of their own, and or because they have some kind of bias against England and by proxy, the language. Going into depth on compulsory education practices or Anglophobia are topics for very different videos. Where I want to focus is on the language itself, independent of these factors. So why does it suck ass to learn English? Many people don't know or understand that English is a Germanic language. For a very long time I thought it was Latin-based. And that is also kind of true. Old English formed from a few Germanic tribes invading England and forcing their native tongue down the throats of the Celts. Then Vikings came in, did their thing, married the beautiful English babes, and did their darndest to learn the language of their fine maidens. However, Vikings are not known for their intellect. So they pretty much fucked up half the language, taught their kids this bastardized version, and then those kids fucked it up more, taught their kids, and so on. So where did all these Latin words come from? After a while, some French Vikings, the Normans, came in and took over, lending the language thousands of shiny new Latin words. Some arrogant blowhards then encouraged the use of Latin words to sound cooler, which is where the big word sounds smart sentiment was developed. Skip ahead a few hundred years and everything science-y is in Greek. Why the history lesson? I just wanted to give some context to why the English language is so fucked up. This complicated history is the reason why there are so many inconsistencies in the language. One of the most noticeable is pronunciation. You know those goofy looking letters in dictionaries with the lines and whatnot? Those are called phonemes. These are the most basic distinguishable units of sound in a language. Essentially, phonemes provide every single way the characters and their combinations can be pronounced in a given language. English has approximately 44 phonemes for its 26 letters. That's 70% more distinct sounds than there are characters in the language. This is not totally uncommon in those silly European languages, but when coming from a phonetically simple language like Japanese, it can be quite frustrating to find that a word like this is pronounced the same as this. On the topic of things that sound the same, English has an irresponsible amount of homonyms. These are words that sound or are spelled the same. English has thousands of homonyms and they tend to be pretty common words, which can be a huge pain, but not a pain. Emphasizing different words in the same sentence can also lead to confusion as it adds more meaning to the statement. Take the simple statement, "She hit me." Very clear and direct meaning. Now if I were to say, "She hit me," it puts focus on the hitter, making the statement more of an accusation. Saying it like, "She hit me," implies that the violent act was very uncalled for. And emphasizing the last word, "She hit me," could imply that foul wench had the audacity to lay her hand upon me! Like you're some kind of royalty or something. As you can see, a simple 3-word sentence can have plenty of underlying meaning, just based on the way it is said. English also breaks its own rules. A lot. A classic example is the stupid fucking I before E except after C rule. In case you're not familiar with this bullshit, there is a rule taught in English courses that states when spelling a word with an I and E next to each other, the order in which the I and E are oriented is I first, then E, unless it is directly following a C. This is wrong most of the time. Not just sometimes, a majority of the time. To be fair, this isn't a rule of English, it's a half-assed statement created by some dipshit from the 19th century that probably thought there was only 1,000 words in the language. Plus, we have spell check now, so fuck it. Another frequently broken rule is that of past tense. Many verbs are converted to past tense by adding ed at the end. However, plenty of common verbs don't follow this. The past tense of eat is not eated, it is ate. I'm not going to get pedantic in the learning hurdles of English, so here's some honorable mentions because I know there's going to be comments about it. Modern English has a bunch of idioms, which are colloquial sayings that don't make sense unless you already know what they mean or have proper context. Maybe the most common example being "it's raining cats and dogs." This means it's raining a lot, whereas saying something like "it's raining crickets and frogs" would make people think it's the end of the world. Sometimes English will alter its word order in questions. The normal word order for English statements is subject, verb, object, not terribly uncommon amongst most languages, but sometimes when a statement is formed as a question, it changes the word order to verb, subject, object. Something far more rare. An example of this would be comparing the statement, "This animal is a dog," to, "Is this animal a dog?" Both statements use the same words, but the question form changes the order. This is exceedingly rare. The last honorable mention I want to bring up is the inclusion of the TH sound. To a native English speaker, this sound is imperative for daily conversation. The most used word in English is the. In fact, I use the 102 times in this video, and the th sound a total of 250 times. A majority of languages around the world do not use this sound at all, making it pretty difficult to pronounce many words in English. Holy shit, those are some of the prominent issues when faced with the seemingly insurmountable task of learning English. It's been pretty negative so far, so let's talk pros. The tone in which a word is spoken does not relate to the word's definition. This was a very alien concept to me being a native English speaker. In African and East Asian languages, it is not rare for a language to utilize pitch as a means of distinguishing different words. Put simply, depending on the pitch used when speaking a word, the word can have a very different meaning. Mandarin and Thai are often used as examples of tonal languages because of how complex their tonal system is. In Thai, the word ka could have 5 different meanings depending on how it's pronounced. Then I'm going to attempt it now. There's ka, 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 and ka, I think. I probably butchered that. I just wanted to give an example. I'm not an expert in Thai or anything. In fact, the definitions I gave for those different words might not even be right. So, take it with a grain of salt. The reason why I believe the lack of this tonal system is a pro is because it grants English more freedom in how words can be expressed. English also does not contain politeness distinctions in pronouns. In a language like Hindi, the pronouns used when talking or referring to someone depend on how polite you wish the statement to be. Granted, English has distinctions like "Yes, Your Majesty" for addressing royalty, but these are two independent words that have a new meaning together. Speaking of pronouns, grammatical gender is basically non-existent in English. Sure, English uses gender in pronouns, but that's pretty much it. A chair is a chair. I don't fucking care what gender it is. Why would it have a gender in the first place? In English, there is no concern over the gender of non-personified inanimate objects. And even if there were, the word "the" remains "the", no matter the case. These few points favoring English may not be enough to offset the difficulty of learning the language, and there are more benefits that I could go into, but I feel they're very minor, situational, and not worth the time mentioning. So, does English suck? No. I don't believe it does. I used to be in the same boat as the people who hate it for its fucked up rules and difficulty to learn. Most native English speakers don't know the difference between who and whom or how to use a semicolon. And with more and more words being created and incorporated from other languages, it is becoming increasingly frustrating to pick up. But these things I covered earlier that make English so strange and arduous are double-edged swords. They are also the reasons why the language is so incredible. The high phoneme-to-character ratio and existence of all these homonyms means that there is plenty of potential for wordplay. The lack of tonal distinction in the definition of words and the use of emphasis allow the speaker far more freedom in expression than many other languages. The fact that it breaks its own rules so often means you can get away with breaking them too, giving the language plenty of creative potential. The inclusion of so many distinct languages provides incredible variety in the possible words to utilize. And the fact that so many idioms exist just goes to show how poetic this language is. I began to love English once I started writing creatively and learning about other languages. I saw the benefits of the strangeness and found beauty in the adaptability. The difficulty in learning a language is almost purely dependent on where you're coming from. The easiest language to learn is your native tongue. The difficulty in learning a new language depends on how similar it is to the one you already know. English is very weird compared to most languages and can even be hard for native speakers. But once that learning curve is overcome, It is a wonderful mess. Peace.